Good morning, everyone. And before I start my presentation for today's event, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank EDCOR, the Educational Research Center of the Philippines, for allowing us research enthusiasts to present our research in an international arena like this. Now, to start with, I am Ricky Simultania from the Schools Divisions Office of Mandaluyong City, a sole proponent for this study, Home Learning Partners Involvement in the blended learning modality, its relationship to learners' performance. To start with, I'd like to highlight here that on my introductions, I also used the study of Flory and Buchanan of 2014, which states that parental involvement in their child's literacy practices is more powerful force than other family background variables, such as social class, family size, and level of education. None. Now, upon seeing that one, I'd like to use this one as a backup with my statement saying that amidst this pandemic, is there a significant relationship when it comes to the performance of the learners having their parents or the parental involvement while they are learning at home. So for the research gap, I'd like to find out the questions or the problems such as whether or not there is an effect of home learning partners involvement in the learner's learning modality and performance in the blended modality. Now, with this, I'd like to present my research concept or the conceptual framework of my study. Now, the home learning partners involvement through synchronous and asynchronous activity of the learners, the parental's financial support, the moral support, and do they have a significant effect on the cognitive values, formations, and skills of the students? So basically, this is my conceptual framework. Next is that I also have identified research objective. First, to assess the effect and impact of the home learning partners' involvement on the learner's performance. Second is to identify learners' performance in the blended learning through the home learning partners' involvement. Next is to prove the relationship between the home learning partners' support and the learner's performance. First, we also have the participants or the respondents of the study. I have here 50 home learning partners, which is also the parents of the 50 learners. So basically, this study will be conducted in our school, Addition Hills Integrated School of Mandaluyong City. For the methodology, persons R's correlations was used and the data were tabulated and treated statistically. I utilize also descriptive research quantitatively because it summarized the given data through frequency mean and percentages. Now, p-value was used to show a significant relationship between the home learning partner's involvement and the student learning. Well, basically, a p-value less than 0.05 is statistically significant. Now, R value also was used to illustrate or show the correlation strength between the home learning partner's involvement and the student learning. Level of home learning partners' involvement in the blended learning modality indicators, such as the data that you see on the screen. So we have very high, the moderately high, and low and very low. So when it comes to the level of home learning partners' involvement, they will be evaluated and assessed through these indicators. Now, when it comes to relationship indicators, I also have here the legend on the screen as you can see. So it should be very strong, moderate, weak, and very weak relationship. All right. So participants and other sources of the data. This study will use a simple descriptive comparative research design. A self-made survey questionnaire was used. In this study, there were 50 respondents, 50 students, and 50 home learning partners, and also a school evaluators, validators, and teachers, ensuring the authenticity of the material. So as you all know, as you can see that the data that the research instrument that I've used in this study is self-made, so therefore it should undergo um, uh, quality assurance and pilot testing. to ensure the authenticity and readability of the result of the study. Now, for the data gathering methods, so as soon as the instrument was validated, so I seek an approval from our principal, and once it was validated, I personally conducted the study. So in a form of Google Forms. Google Forms because during that time, face-to-face manner is not yet allowed. So statistically interpreted the data after. And we come now to the results and discussions. So in this table, you can see the level of involvement of the home learning partners in the synchronous and asynchronous activity. So all of this, they have or they obtained an overall mean of 3.59, which implied a very high involvement. So as we all know that during synchronous and asynchronous activities of our learners, of the students, we cannot deny the fact that the role of the home learning partners, could it be their parents or guardians, are very important. Now, when it comes to the level of home learning partners involved, when it comes to financial support, it obtained 3.55, which is also a very high involvement. So financial support, especially nowadays, are very important. Any kind of financial support is very important. Like because if we professionals are being challenged by the situations, how much more our students. Okay, so yeah, so that implies a very high level of involvement when it comes to financial. Now, home learning partners' involvement in the blended learning modality in terms of moral support. It obtained 3.62, which is a very high involvement. So moral support, aside from financial support, like the very important to support that a student, a learner could have is a moral support, especially coming from their parents or guardians. It has 3.62, which have a verbal interpretations of very high uh, level. Now, let's come to the student learning in terms of their cognitive. So upon learning the different level involvement of the home learning partners, now let's have the cognitive level of the students. So it obtained an overall mean of 3.44, which is also very high. So with the level of student learnings in terms of values formations, it obtained 3.72, which is also very high when it comes to values formations, and level of student learning in terms of their skills, such as 3.44, very high. Now, let's compare and let's identify the level of relationship and also the levels of significance of the factors that being mentioned in the different table. So let's start with the synchronous and the synchronous. So given the table, you can see that in the cognitive values, permissions, and skills, now synchronous and asynchronous has a significant impact, meaning to say that the involvement of the parents on the synchronous and asynchronous activity of the learners has a strong relationship on the cognitive skills development, on the values permissions, and on the skills development of the students. Now, when it comes to financial support, it has uh, a strong impact, I mean, strong relationship when it comes to cognitive of the students also. It has significant impact, strong and significant impact when it comes to values formation, and on the skills, it has a strong relationship and significant impact on the skills formation of the students. However, and on the moral support, on the cognitive part, it has a weak relationship, but it has a significant impact. On the values formation, strong relationship and significant impact. On the skills, it has a weak relationship, but however, it has a significant impact. Now, seeing this result, it only implied that we as Filipinos, we are very resilient. We are very resilient that we can do so much and we can do everything. no, with the use of moral support, with this moral support. Like moral support above all is very important, especially to our learners. Now, based on the data gathered and the result presented, it is very evident to say that there is a significant relationship between home learning partners' involvement in the blended learning modality and the learner's performance. Thus, the null hypothesis stating that there is no significant relationship between the involvement of the home learning and the student's learning in the blended learning modality is rejected. Based on the conclusion obtained, the following recommendations shall be considered. First, in cognitive learning, the home learning partners must strengthen the moral supports towards their learners. In the same way, also, the school must have different means of communicating students' performance to their parents. Of course, as you can see on the results, the in the cognitive learning, among the factors being evaluated, it was the moral support who obtained a negative relationship level. So of course in that I'd like to highlight that in these recommendations that it's very important also to strengthen the moral support among teachers and parents to the students. Now, this formation showed a perfect significant relationship among the variables. Now, because it's perfect, to sustain and highlight its importance, the school must conduct different programs and projects, emphasizing more on the importance of parent involvement on the values formations of the learners. Because, I believe also that when speaking of values formation, it should start at home. So, the school also must be responsible in strengthening the values permissions that should start at home by conducting different projects among parents to let them know what are the good values to be inculcated in the students while learning at home. In the skills development, the home learning partners also must diligently and consistently show morals towards their learners. Simple appreciations and recognitions will be a great way to let them know that they are appreciated. Sometimes our students tend to be demotivated. The only thing that we can do to that is to appreciate their work even though it's not that perfect, but we know, when you appreciate them, they tend to be motivated and excel successfully in their different aspects, in the different aspects of their classes. Teachers and parents should work hand in hand to build a strong skills foundations among learning. That's very important also. So that is why in this research, I am trying also to bridge the gap between the relationship of parents and teachers. So with that, these are my references that I have used in my study. And again, thank you so much for listening. And I hope that you learned something from my study. Thank you so much.